Okay, another episode of Expandable.
Morning.
And this one I hope is going to be is very edifying for people out there in the business world. And honestly, I don't even know what you're going to say. I just have a kind of a question in my mind.
Okay.
So I have some friends that own businesses, and kind of like in the last 6 months or so, I've had a couple of them come to the table and basically say, through conversation, them say that they're with a big bank. And I won't say the name of the bank, but one of the big 4 or 5, however many big banks there are. And the bank just calls them up and says, "Hey, we're not going to bank you anymore." Now I don't know all the context to why, but I kind of found that a little bit, unnerving to think that a bank could just call you up and say, "Hey, you're not going to be a customer of ours anymore." Now, I'm sure there has to be something valid. Now, I know these people.
You would think so.
And I could vouch for them and say that they are good, upstanding people. They take care of all their stuff.
I've got fantastic customers that were closed down from the big banks. And
okay, so you've seen this before. So that's my question.
And the big banks are our greatest sales assets, because when we get a customer from, I don't care, Wells or Truist or any of those, and then they come to an actual bank that they talk to people, they're just blown away. Yeah. They've never had it. So those are, the best. If you have potential customers, they complain about a community bank, it's like, oh, wait a second, maybe we don't want them as a customer, because they, actually go to the big bank and see how your service is, and, and then come back and you'll appreciate it. But, I can tell you, when we close down an account, it's because we notice risk. Okay. It is going to be, patterns that they've established. Maybe they're not keeping control of their car or appropriately. Why is it they've had 4, new debit cards in a month? Right. Lost or stolen.
Yeah. Red flag. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And then, so is there going to be a potential loss to the bank? Mm-hmm. Or there's BSA concerns where we can't tell the people why we've shut down, closing them down. Sure. Just exceeded the risk. But there's reasons. Now, there has been times over the years they've closed somebody down because they were a complete asshole to staff. And it's like, no, we choose. Sure. Clearly don't like, go elsewhere. But I've seen customers that have been with the big banks for 10, 15 years and have businesses and the personal with them, and they'll get a letter and say, they have to move in 2 months. And I can't figure it out. Mm-hmm. I've known them in the community. Sure. When you hear things in a small town, you hear frauds pretty quickly. That gets out, especially in the business world, banking, and it's amplified because we have a lot of businesses. So my customers, they may complain about who's sticking them the bill, and, stuff kind of gets out, the bad actors, people behind on everything. Because when you start screwing over your vendors in a small town, stuff gets out. Yeah, sure. And you can't really hide that stuff. No, it catches up with you very quickly. Yeah. And you should. I mean, there should be repercussions if you're doing that. Right. But there has been a push over the years for ESG, environmental social governance. So the government has pushed large banks, and we've been fighting this through Florida Bankers Associations and a ton of associations, independent community bankers associations, all fighting this. They said, "Oh, it's not going to come down to the big banks." They're trying to police their social moral turpitude and push it to have the banks do their dirty work. Gotcha. But even on customers that you see, what is their dirty work? It could have been they deposited cash one day in their business, and they're like, "Oh, that cash, that line of business had no." They're just kind of looking for correct reason. Instead of giving them a call and say, "Hey, we noticed, you deposited, I don't know, $15,000 in cash." Yeah. And you typically deposit checks. Mm-hmm. You say, "Well, you know what? My customer decided to pay me cash." Mm-hmm. Here's the transaction. If you're in like a service type of business, you're going to run across any type of business. I mean, let's say, if you're, you could be a contractor. There are people going to pay for $50,000, $100,000. Sometimes they may pay in cash on their house. Mm-hmm. With their electrician. It's not unheard of. No, it's not. And
it shouldn't be a huge red flag.
no, but potentially, the only thing I think of when I look at some of these accounts is like, why in the world would the bank shut it down other than them being in a line of business? Of course, typically we'll see regions of the big banks will go in and say, the Southeast, now we're cracking down and we're not going to have many service businesses. And so they send out
like
letters.
A market.
Correct. And then see the market. And it's great for us because we'll see boom, 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 a congregation of a lot of calls coming from that one market.
Right.
It's kind of like the left hand and the right hand didn't know what they were doing for years in that specific industry. But then that one's tell. They're saying, okay, we don't want to bank that specific industry. Okay. But then others on a consumer for a normal business industry that they're banking everywhere across the United States.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So
I don't.
So it
I do believe they think they need to be held to a higher standard because, I got to tell you, the last time I got a complaint that I had to order to, this person was completely trying to defraud us. And then I'm having to respond to the government agency twice. This person is trying to defraud us. Here's all the proof. They're trying to make us send them a card to an address that's not associated on file, not associated with their driver's license, not associated with this, not associated with this.
Obvious fraud.
And we're having to actually respond to the complaint that they did.
Yep.
Give me a break.
Yeah. So to the market thing, that makes the most sense to me, especially from a business standpoint. I guess the analogy that comes to mind is sort of recently, back in 2023, Amazon and some other big companies let go like tens of thousands of people. And, it makes headlines because it's tens of thousands of people. But when you really look at their business, it's so gigantic that many people is almost scheduled layoffs for that big of a business.
And they start lines of business that didn't pan out.
Correct.
And
that's exactly where I'm headed with that, is that they might be in a certain type of robotic, whatever, that was research and development, and it ended up, they're not going down that road anymore. So there's 5,000 people that now don't have a job because they just sort of got rid of it. And we're looking at our friend who lost their job and saying, well, they did a great job. They were doing great at their job, but it had nothing to do with them. So to me, it seems like a very similar thing where
and
banks get out of markets and
then we're at this dichotomy is because you do have banks that have closed-end accounts and you don't necessarily know why, and is it right or wrong? Part of me is, keep doing it. It only benefits us.
Yeah. Especially if you're in those markets.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I do believe that you should be able to bank who you want to bank. But in a lot of cases, like, why would you close down an account when, there's not a risk to you because you don't like what they're doing? If they're doing a legal enterprise, I don't care if it's a line of business that I don't want to be in, but if they're upholding the law and they provide proof, then,
it seems wrong.
I'm not going to.
It seems wrong, but it also definitely points to a higher kind of governing.
Correct. But now on the other side, we have state legislation in Florida trying to pass bills that are forcing the state banks to, every time we close an account, unless it was initiated by the customer or there's a couple qualifications. We have to send a reason why to the state, and the state has so many days to respond back to us. And if we did it irresponsibly, then it opens us up to liability.
Gotcha.
So, what is complete bullshit on this one is it's the right wing that is trying to pass bad legislation to conflict the existing legislation instead of less legislation is typically the right wing. So now it's completely flip-flop. They're doing the same thing, but then they're only hurting the state banks who are not doing that. It's the large national banks. So great. You're penalizing the good people in your state. It is the most asinine thing in the world.
As always, they're painting with a broad brush.
Oh, God. Yeah. But this isn't even broad brush. It's with the state level.
Right.
So they're penalizing state chartered banks and opening us up to liability of this possible legislation.
Yeah, that's messed
to
up.
Give a reason. And then you know what? Because of federal law, I can't give every reason if I suspect, true suspicious activity related under BSA.
Yeah.
So thank you. You put us in a position that there is no win on either side. we're telling you this, but yet you're so hard-headed, you want to continue to push it.
Right.
You know, it works out because, you know, I think the statement is, oh, one business closed down, there's going to be another bank to backfill it.
Yeah.
If it is a legal enterprise, I don't care if it was higher risk, there will be a bank that backfills it. If there's an opportunity for that segment, a bank will fill that.
Sure.
And you know what? And then that bank will do a great job fulfilling it. I mean,
yeah, that's right.
Ultimately, why do you want to give money or provide money to a company that, you know, could just arbitrarily close you down because they don't like your
I mean, it's
opinion on something.
Right.
I mean,
you know, when we get that call, it's like kind of jarring probably because you have to now switch banks, but it's probably the best thing that could have happened because now you're actually could go find a bank that can care for you and know more about how your business runs and be more, you know, more of like a strategic partner than just this sort of thing that exists where there's transactions.
Yeah. And I mean, so, you know, it's amazing. You know, it's always harder to create a new customer than maintain your customer.
Yeah, for sure.
So you've already got a relationship. And some of the ones I've seen were hundreds of thousands of dollars and even possible mortgages or business accounts, personal accounts, money markets.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't talk to them and just say, hey, what line of business are you in? Mm-hmm. You should already have that information. You should already have a profile. You already have expected activity in your system. And a couple quick phone calls could have satisfied everything. But, you know, we do that.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm glad they don't do it. You know?
Yeah. Well, you know, so there is good that comes from another anecdotal thing that's come across my plate just kind of in light of this is my brother lives in Missouri and he's got his own business and he was banking with one of the big banks for ever since he was probably 16.
Okay.
Like, you know, personal accounts and then business accounts and all of the stuff. And something came to fruition like this, and we'll get into the details. And he basically was like, okay, I got to start over. And so he called up a couple of his family members nearby, and they said, oh, yeah, we bank over at the smaller bank, community bank. He walked in there and had a completely different experience. And so he was like, where's this been all my life? Like, I've been, you know, pulling my hair out, trying to get them to help me. And I've been giving them all my money all these years. And now I walk in there and day one, they're all over. They know my name.
And then people think that like, oh, I've been with Wells for 30 years. And, you know, really they haven't been. They've been with 5 different banks and never chose. Like it just kept on changing over the years.
Yeah.
And they think that actually does something for them. Mm-hmm. No. It makes you no different than somebody that came and opened an account the next day.
Yeah.
And you know, even at the large banks, I don't know if you got millions, you must have a ton. If you want any influence, you need millions and millions of dollars in their trust department.
Yeah.
And then maybe you're not going to influence. Yeah. And so, you know, for that person, you're building a business, stay away from the big banks. Mm-hmm. There's no loyalty. There's nothing that good comes from that. You know,
I agree. I've seen it.
Yeah. Penny wise, pound foolish is what happens. You know, you may get a little bit better rate at one point, but you pay for it in the long run for sure. For sure.
Well, that's interesting. A good context to that because I was, you know, when I heard these stories, I'm like, what's going on out there? Like, how can they just shut your account down?
There's no rhyme or reason.
Yeah, it seems. I mean, you can do business with whoever you want to or not. Right? It's not like there's a law, I guess, unless there's an agreement.
I mean, some of these accounts, it's not like they're even.
It just seems wrong.
How often are they really even in the branch? There's just no. Even if they are, they're making deposits, but it's a lot of electronics. So, yeah. So they arbitrarily something in the flag system instead of that analyst actually talking to them on the cold. Done.
Yep.
See you later. So thanks for the 20 years of service.
Yeah, exactly. And we're canceling you.
Correct.
That's so dumb.
Yeah. I mean, I remember, you know, years ago we had to close down an account with somebody. I really liked the individual, banked them from years, you know, and we asked, got to provide this. So we have, you know, belief, unreasonable doubt that everything is an up and up.
Right.
And
if it was, they would provide it.
And I believe that he was on the up and up, but I also believe that he was, she were, maybe, I don't know, maybe just libertarian, like the bank should not know my business whatsoever. Mm-hmm. I get that.
Yeah, I get it too.
I get that.
Yeah.
But I'm charged and have to.
Yeah, I mean, all the other side exists for
I have to know the business, and so like, and we had the part mutually beneficially like, I'm sorry, I'd love to continue banking, but if we have proof, then continue on, and it just wasn't there. Yeah,
it's unfortunate, but very different than. You're asking.
Yeah, we had the conversation. You had plenty of time. It wasn't
different than just saying
you're having a letter. See you later
for zero reason. You're out.
Yeah, you get a letter from us. We expect you're at risk.
And they're probably expecting that letter.
Yeah, I mean you're bouncing checks. You're doing this, and deposits are no good. I mean, just all over the place. We see a pattern. We're like, oh no,
right. Yeah. Well, cool. Thanks for clearing that up, because I think that's interesting for people who have either seen it with friends or maybe experienced it themselves.
Correct. And it's typically the businesses. Yeah. But
it's good. All right. On to the next one.